Welcome back to our studios here in Lahore. I'm Hamza Amjad. Now let's begin with Syria, where 62 combatants have been killed in clashes between pro-government forces and rebels in the northwest Idlib province. War monitors said 45 militants and 17 pro-government fighters were among those killed in the fighting for the key town of Khan Sheikhoun. Khan Sheikhoun lies on a highway that connects government-held Damascus with the northern city of Aleppo. Pro-regime forces are deployed around 3 kilometers from the road and have been advancing over the past few days in a bid to encircle the town. Meanwhile, a car bomb attack has killed a Kurdish police officer in northeast Syria. A spokesman for the Kurdish police said the bomb was detonated by remote control near a school as a police patrol drove by in the city of Qamishli. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack. Kurdish forces control most of Qamishli, while government troops are deployed in the city's Arab quarters and around the airport. Moving on to Afghanistan, where ISIS has claimed responsibility for a suicide blast at a wedding in western Kabul, killing 63 people and wounding 182 others. The Afghan Interior Ministry said 182 others were wounded in the suicide bombing. The ministry said children and women were also among the dead. Eyewitnesses said the hall was packed with guests when the explosion occurred. The Taliban have condemned the attack, which has been claimed by ISIS. Meanwhile, police said 12 civilians have been killed in a roadside bomb blast in the northern province of Balkh. Meanwhile, the Afghan Taliban have said peace talks with the US will continue, despite the killing of their chief's brother in a bomb attack. This comes after the younger brother of Taliban leader Haibatullah Akhundzada died in a recent bombing. The Taliban said they are close to reaching their goal and such attempts cannot stop them from achieving it. Earlier, the White House said talks with the Taliban are moving in the right direction. US President Donald Trump said both parties are looking for a deal to end the decade-long war in Afghanistan. Indian occupation forces have wounded dozens of Kashmiri protesters with pellet guns in Srinagar as a crushing curfew enters its 14th day. Protesters were carrying flags and chanting slogans against New Delhi's illegal annexation of the valley. Indian troops fired tear gas and pellet guns to disperse protesters in the Rainawari, Noheta and Gujwara areas of the city. Srinagar's hospital officials said more than 24 people have been hospitalized with pellet gun injuries. Indian occupation forces have further tightened the curfew after the clashes. Meanwhile, over 4,000 people have been arrested and some of them transferred to India. Now, India's lockdown of occupied Kashmir continues now for nearly 2 weeks. Communications, including telephone and internet, are completely cut off, isolating people from the outside world. The valley is swarming with Indian security forces who have turned Jammu and Kashmir into the world's largest prison.
New Delhi revoked Jammu and Kashmir's status as a disputed territory on August the 5th. Since then, the area has been under total lockdown. Unable to leave their homes, buying essentials like food, fuel and medicine has become almost impossible for Kashmiris. Traders are also having a hard time making ends meet.
India has imposed the removal of Article 370 on us. It's like they have slapped us in our faces. But we will not sit idle. We will starve to death, but we will not compromise on our rights and our dignity. We will take our honor back.
The government in New Delhi says the curfew is necessary to prevent disorder after their move to make Kashmir part of the Indian state. But this argument only confirms that local citizens don't wish to be the part of the Indian state.
Police is outside. What can we do? We don't get anything and we are afraid. We can't go out and play. We can't go to school. We cannot do anything. We are only staying inside our home, and by staying inside the house, we will go mad.
Responding to international criticism of its illegal move, India says Kashmir is its internal matter, but a UN Security Council meeting on the issue on August the 16th shows this is not the case.
Now, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says India has been captured by a fascist and racist leadership. Khan said Prime Minister Narendra Modi's doctrine of hate and genocide will spread unless the international community acts to curb it. Khan said 4 million Muslims are facing detention and cancellation of citizenship due to Modi's extreme ideology. The Premier added that the safety of India's nuclear arsenal is at risk under the rule of Modi's government, and world powers must take this issue seriously. Yemen's Houthi rebels have appointed an ambassador to Tehran following a meeting with Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Iran has made no announcement about accepting the appointment of an envoy for the rebels. Angered by the new development, Yemen's internationally recognized government says the move was against UNSC resolutions. Information Minister Muammar al-Eryani called on the international community to stand firm against Tehran's alleged interference in Yemen. Yemen cut diplomatic relations with Iran in 2015, accusing them of providing military aid to the rebels. Gibraltar has rejected Washington's demand to seize an Iranian oil tanker as it prepared to leave the British overseas territory after weeks of detention. Now, the government said it can't seek a court order to detain the ship because US sanctions against Iran are not applicable in the EU. Earlier, a US court issued a warrant for the seizure of the tanker. Meanwhile, Iran's envoy to the United Kingdom, Hamid Baidinejad, said the vessel is expected to leave Gibraltar tonight. Israeli forces have killed 3 Palestinians near the Gaza border. Palestine's health ministry said another civilian was critically wounded when Israeli troops opened fire at a group of civilians. This comes a day after occupation forces wounded 67 Palestinians during weekly protests along the Gaza border. Israeli warplanes also struck 3 underground bases of Hamas in the north and center of the Gaza Strip. Officials say over 300 Palestinians have been killed since the start of weekly protests last year. Rapturous crowds have filled the streets of Khartoum as Sudan's generals and protest leaders sign a historic deal. Tens of thousands of people cheered to the prospect of civilian rule and eventual elections. The deal was inked during a ceremony attended by Sudan's neighboring leaders and other international dignitaries. The new Prime Minister will be named on August the 20th. Now, this signing brings into effect a constitutional declaration agreed to on August the 4th. The transition deal was reached after months of public protests calling for civilian rule. The United Nations says airstrikes by Eastern forces have caused extensive damage to a civilian airport in western Libya. Now, the UN's Libya mission says attacks on civilian infrastructure are a grave violation of international human rights law. The mission says it didn't find any military infrastructure or assets at the Zuwara airport. The LNA says its air raids targeted shelters used by Turkish drones. While the monsoon continues in India, 8 people died after torrential rains triggered landslides in the northern Himalayan states of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. Several roads were damaged by caved-in rivers and landslides in Himachal Pradesh, causing traffic jams and disruption in many districts. In Uttarkashi, a severe downpour caused water levels to rapidly rise to dangerous levels in the Bhagirathi River. Every year, excessive rainfalls in India causes floods, landslides and waterborne diseases. The death toll from a dengue outbreak in Bangladesh has risen to 98 since the start of this year. Bangladesh's health department said over 1,400 people have been diagnosed in the latest outbreak. The health department says over 50,000 people have been hospitalized with dengue since January. It said nearly 300 people a day were admitted in hospitals in the last 90 days. Now in Bangladesh, 50,000 people were left homeless after a massive fire swept through a slum in the capital city of Dhaka. The government says over 15,000 homes were destroyed in the Chalantika slum. The fire department says many homes had plastic roofs, which caused the flames to spread. It said several people were injured. Firefighters took more than 6 hours to put out the flames. An investigation is underway. In Spain, a huge wildfire on the island of Gran Canaria has triggered mass evacuations. The forest fire has broken out just days after another blaze raged in the area. The fire in Vilaseca forced evacuations in Tejeda, a scenic town with a population of nearly 2,000. The island council said 7 helicopters are working to extinguish the blaze. 70 soldiers of the Spanish Army Emergency Military Unit have also been moved to help contain the fire. Strong winds in the area have fanned the flames, making extinguishing them difficult for firefighters. Tens of thousands of anti-government protesters are marching from Victoria Park in Hong Kong. The fresh protests are held a day after thousands of people showed their support for China. Protesters say they've been saving their energy for today's rally and will show the movement still has broad support. Demonstrations have lost intensity since the situation worsened during the protesters' occupation of the city's airport. Over 2 months of demonstrations in Hong Kong have plunged the Asian financial hub into its worst crisis. The protests in Hong Kong began in June over a controversial extradition bill. British media says Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to meet key European leaders amid uncertainty over Brexit. PM Johnson will try to convince French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel to restart Brexit talks. In his first trip abroad as Prime Minister, Johnson's meetings are scheduled ahead of a G7 summit in France. He plans to tell French and German leaders the British Parliament cannot stop Brexit. Johnson is also expected to urge them to restart the EU negotiations to avoid a no-deal Brexit on October the 31st. After over 3 years of Brexit dominating EU affairs, the bloc has reiterated its refusal to reopen the withdrawal agreement. Minor migrants on board a Spanish charity ship for over 2 weeks have been transferred to the Italian island of Lampedusa. Charity organization Open Arms says 27 minors have been authorized to leave the ship. The development comes after Interior Minister Matteo Salvini allowed only minors to leave the ship. The remaining 107 migrants are still on board. The Spanish charity had rescued the migrants off Libya. Salvini initially ordered officials not to let the migrants disembark. He later made a partial concession at the insistence of Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte. While Greenland dismisses the notion that it might be up for sale. This comes after reports suggested that US President Trump has privately discussed with his advisors the idea of buying the world's biggest island. Now, Greenland's Foreign Minister Anne Lone-Bagger says the country is open to business, but not for sale. Trump is due to visit Copenhagen next month, and the Arctic will be on the agenda during meetings with the Prime Ministers of Denmark and Greenland. Greenland is a self-ruling part of Denmark located between the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. It is dependent on Danish economic support. Well, a group of Bulgarian adventurers have set sail in a reed ship to test a theory that ancient Egyptian traders were able to cross the high seas.
Ancient Greek historian Herodotus wrote that ancient Egyptian traders sailed as far as the Black Sea. Now Bulgarian adventurers will put his writings to the test. They will travel in a ship built with reeds from the Bulgarian port of Varna around the eastern Mediterranean to the island of Crete.
For the departure we are only 11, and we will sail from here via Burgas possibly to Istanbul. And then we will pass the Marmara Sea, Troy, Limnos. What is my scientific goal? And then we have to see. Many people speak about Egypt, Cyprus, Crete. Yes, maybe we will go there.
The adventurer's boat has been built with 2 tons of Toyota reed, 2 kilometers of rope, and is equipped with 2 sails. It is 62 meters long and 40 meters wide. The expedition's leader, Dominique Goelitz, is renowned.
We want to demonstrate that this sailing technique is capable to cross the Black Sea, the Marmara Sea and the Aegean Sea.
The expedition's leader, Dominique Goelitz, is renowned for his sense of history and adventure. In 2007, he set out from New York. For southern Spain to prove Stone Age man made similar transatlantic journeys.
Now, as human activity ravages biodiversity across the planet, Africa's giraffes are also disappearing. There are now just under 100,000 left in the wild. Despite this, little media attention is being paid to the extinction of the world's tallest mammal. Giraffes were once a common sight in the Kenyan plains, but this is not the case any longer. Between 1985 and 2015, their numbers declined by 40% across Africa. The International Union for Conservation of Nature says just under 100,000 are left.
They use even the skin of the giraffe as some medicines. They used to have to cook them, they burn them, and they have that gas from they scrub from the skin, then they use them as medicine. That's why sometimes why they used to kill them before.
The rate of decline is highest in Central and Eastern Africa. In Kenya, Somalia and Ethiopia, the giraffe population has declined by 60% in the past 3 decades. However, little attention has been paid to this tragedy.
There has been so many research done on lions, elephants and other species. But if you try to look at the giraffe, there's very little known about the giraffe. There's very little research done on the giraffe.
6 African nations, including Kenya, are pushing to regulate the international trade in giraffes under the UN Convention on Trade in Endangered Species. Researchers say the first step should be to conduct a study to determine the extent of international trade in giraffes and its influence on giraffe populations. But time is quickly running out for these gentle giants. If the world doesn't act soon, giraffes could soon go the way of the dodo. Hundreds of thousands of people have descended on Max Yasgur's alfalfa fields in New York to mark the 50th anniversary of the Woodstock Festival. Now, amid anti-Vietnam War protests, race riots and assassinations of figures like Martin Luther King, Woodstock's message of peace and love served as an antidote to the anger of young Americans.
I'm so happy to be here.
The Woodstock Festival is venerated as a beacon of hope that shone brightly in the tumultuous 60s. Its 50th anniversary kicked off with a performance by singer Arlo Guthrie, the son of folk revolutionary Woody Guthrie. He was one of the musicians who performed in that iconic 1969 weekend.
And I don't want to die. The fact that we're still here. Still singing, still playing, still going to shows and enjoying ourselves. Kept the spirit alive for a long time. And so here we are just trying to celebrate that. And thank you for showing up and being here.
The Woodstock Festival showcased a rock genre rooted in American folk. Aging hippies donning tie-dye kaftans, flower crowns, and fringed suede vests hark back to the golden age of peace, love, and music. People returned to the venue 50 years later to remember their youth and how their lives changed forever.
69, it's changed a tremendous amount. The weather is much better, but it's a good feeling to come back. I was 19 when I came out here, and it was quite an experience.
The historical Woodstock site is now operated by a non-profit group which holds regular concerts and runs a museum to honor the Woodstock legend.
Over in Prague, a French artist has opened a circus festival by walking a 350-meter-long tightrope at a height of 35 meters. This feat was accomplished without the help of a security belt. Here's more. French artist Tatiana Mosio Bonganga walked the tightrope above the Vltava River to roaring applause from the crowd. The feat was one of the performances at the official opening of the Prague Circus Festival. Bonganga set a new personal record with her walk, even though she didn't use a security belt. The new circus style incorporates traditional elements, but with an added twist.
Tatiana started the festival by crossing the Vltava River on a tightrope, and this is kind of a motto for this festival. Otherwise, all the performances here have their own poetry and will be finding their own way to the circus.
The festival features world-class contemporary circus acts, from puppet shows and cabaret to breathtaking acrobatic performances.
The topic of this performance is about the old rituals and understanding the basic circle of fire and other elements. We are trying using spinning and juggling techniques to tell the story of one shaman soul leading the way to Astra.
The crowd was also delighted by other performances from dance troupes and fire jugglers. The Prague Circus Festival will continue till the 1st of September. Well, there's a new player in the world of wearable tech, Metamaterial. The new high-tech fabric was created by a team at the National University of Singapore. They say their invention can save battery life on the wearer's devices by helping establish stronger wireless connections. This is not your typical t-shirt. It's made of a new textile called Metamaterial that helps boost connections between wearable technology. It stops Bluetooth and Wi-Fi signals from radiating in all directions and help them glide across the material.
This t-shirt has certain patterns on it that we are calling metamaterial textiles. What they do is they guide wireless signals that are emitted very close to my body by regular devices that we have around us, like smartphones or smartwatches.
Apart from saving battery life and improving connectivity, Metamaterial also has cybersecurity applications. By restricting signals to the immediate area around itself, the smart textile can save sensitive data from hacking attempts. It can also be used to measure medical patients or athletes' vital signs.
We hope that this will make the ability to kind of wear electronics on our body and kind of sense these signals more convenient and more imperceptible. So we can merge these electronic devices closer and closer to our bodies without having them get in our way.
Metamaterial can be washed, dried and ironed like other fabrics. It's also cheap, costing only a few dollars per meter. The team at NUS has obtained a patent on the textile's design, meaning Metamaterial t-shirts could soon hit a clothing store near you. Welcome back. Now, first up in the world of business, Namibia has handed over the Southern African Development Community chairperson role to Tanzania at the body's 39th summit. More details in this report.
The 16-member intergovernment organization aims at promoting sustainable industrial development in the region. Outgoing chairperson and Namibian President Hage Geingob has passed the baton to John Pombe Magufuli, President of Tanzania. Delivering his last speech as the chairperson, Namibia's President Hage Geingob highlighted the challenges faced by the region. He stressed the need to increase intra-trade and create jobs to support development agendas.
As a region, SADC has to assume a pivotal role in ensuring that there is an effective system of facilitating and monitoring intra-regional trade and cross-border business transactions with a view to enhancing intra-regional trade.
The SADC summit is responsible for the overall policy direction and control functions in the region.
China says nanoscience will contribute over $125 billion to the global economy by 2024. The white paper, entitled Scaling Down for a Bright Future, charted China's noticeable progress in the domain. It was issued at the 8th International Conference on Nanoscience and Technology held in Beijing. The conference drew over 2,500 experts, scholars and business representatives from 40 countries. Nano products and equipment brought by 60 institutes and companies were displayed at the 4-day conference. Let's talk about sports. In the World Test Cricket Championship, Sri Lanka win the first test at Gale by 6 wickets against New Zealand, chasing a target of 268. Skipper Dimuth Karunaratne led by example, hitting 122, while Lahiru Tirimanne made 64 runs. Kiwi bowlers Trent Boult, Tim Southee, William Somerville and Ajaz Patel took 1 wicket each in the 4th innings. Earlier, New Zealand struggled in their 2nd innings on day 4, losing wickets at regular intervals. Steve Smith has been ruled out of the 2nd Ashes test after suffering delayed concussions. Smith was struck on the neck by a bouncer from Jofra Archer during his innings on Saturday. He was forced to retire hurt, but returned to the crease later and added 12 runs before being dismissed for 92. Smith didn't field at the start of England's second innings due to concussions. He was formally replaced by Marnus Labuschagne on the final day of the match. With this, Smith becomes the first player to be formally substituted out of a test match due to a concussion. England declared their second innings on 258 for 5, leaving Australia with a target of 267 to win with half a day remaining. In the Premier League, Arsenal beat Burnley 2-1 at the Emirates Stadium. This is the first time Arsenal have recorded successive victories at the start of the Premier League since 2009. Defending champions Manchester City have drawn their match with Tottenham 2-2. Alexander Lacazette opened the scoreline for Arsenal before Ashley Barnes equalised it in the first half for Burnley. Emerick Aubameyang scored the winner in the second half, giving Arsenal their second consecutive win. Meanwhile, City had a dramatic draw against Spurs after Gabriel Jesus' last-minute goal was cancelled through VAR. Raheem Sterling opened the scoreline for City through a header. City maintained their attack and they did get a last-minute goal through Gabriel Jesus, but it was cancelled after a video review. In Honduras, riots between rival soccer fans have killed 3 people and wounded 7 others in Tegucigalpa. Medics and 3 of the injured are in life-threatening conditions. Supporters of Olimpia and Montagua teams rioted outside the national stadium in the capital. The riot is believed to have started when a bus carrying Montagua players was attacked ahead of a national championship game between the rival clubs. Meanwhile, World Football governing body FIFA has banned former Nigeria coach Samson Siasia for life following a match-fixing probe. Siasia played as a striker for Nigeria and later coached several national youth sides before the national team. The case is the latest to emerge from FIFA's long-running investigation into the activities of Singaporean Wilson Raj Peruma. Peruma has admitted fixing matches in media interviews. FIFA also fined Siasia $50,000. Real Madrid's coach Zinedine Zidane has confirmed that Gareth Bale will not leave the club at the end of the Spanish transfer window on September the 2nd. Bale helped Madrid get off to a strong start in La Liga. The Welsh set up Madrid's opening goal against Celta Vigo in the La Liga opener. Bale was handed a starting spot after Eden Hazard was ruled out due to injury on Friday. Zidane said he is happy with the performance and Bale will stay at Madrid.
We spoke Zidane and Gareth Bale ahead of the game. I have said 2 or 3 times that he's going to stay, and all the players that we have are only thinking about the season ahead. I think the way Gareth Bale played and the way everybody played was really good.
Madrid started their new season campaign with a 3-1 away win against Celta Vigo. They will host Valladolid on Saturday. Well, it's 28 degrees Celsius here in Lahore, but let's take a look at the weather around the world. Well, that was all I have from the news bulletin at the moment, but do stay tuned to Indus News. I'll be back in a few minutes with the news headlines. As always, thanks for watching.